Roki Sasaki may not be posted as soon as we thought. Does that change anything for the Dodgers prospects? And the Dodgers are making some moves behind the scenes, it appears like. What does that mean for the team in 2025? We'll talk about it. Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win that first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. This is the daily podcast covering the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. You can make that easier on yourself by subscribing and get notified when our episodes are ready or when we're going live like we are here on Wednesday night. If this is your first time listening or watching, welcome. I'm Ben Samperio. That's Jeff Snider. And we've been doing this here podcast for a while now, 6+ seasons going into our 7th season in 2025. We've been doing a Dodger podcast for 9 years now. We've been covering the Dodgers, in our own ways for the last 10 years, writing about the Dodgers, talking about the Dodgers, interviewing Dodgers, being in the press box, being in the locker room. So a lot of Dodger knowledge as well as being Dodger fans our entire lives. So, we got a little something for you, and we're all becoming better Dodger fans in the process. If you are an everyday or if this is your first time watching, whenever it is, we're just here to appreciate the Dodgers, and it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to appreciate those Dodgers when they are the current reigning World Series champions, right, Jeff?
Yeah. Dodgers are World Series champions. You and I are World Series champions. BC and Gabriel and Argenis and IB Strokin and Daniel and all these other people in the chat right now. We're all World Series champions.
Yeah, that indeed we are. And, after the World Series champion, it's not going to wear off for a while. It's not going to wear off definitely before the next season starts. It's still going to be there. But, we are planning for and looking ahead towards 2025 now. And one of the people that we think could pitch for the Dodgers in 2025 is Roki Sasaki. And, we know that he was going to get posted. We weren't entirely sure when he was going to get posted after it was initially announced. We assumed it would have been right away, but then there was some reports that said he might wait, or it might happen in the next international signing period, which doesn't start until after the break, which starts in January. So we got, confirmation from Rob Ramfred that it will happen in the next international signing period, not the current one, which does change things a little in the sense of money and teams and with money and things of that nature. But, if you're someone that believes Sasaki's going to the Dodgers regardless, it might not change too many things for you. But there are some things to consider now, right, Jeff?
Yeah, it puts other teams on more even footing because the Dodgers have a lot more money left for the 2024 signing period than any other team, and they'll have less than most teams for 2025 on account of being good and in a big market. But they also have more money for the 2025 period than they have left for 2024. So even if he's already decided to sign with the Dodgers, it makes more sense for him to do it in the 2025 period because he can get more money then. I don't think this, realistically, if it was him choosing when to be posted, he'd probably want to choose like December 8th or 9th, because then you've got a week of this period and then a month off and then a week of the next period. So he could choose which signing period to sign in. But again, like if he was going to sign in 2024 and money was the reason, the Dodgers had a head start. But the Dodgers even have more money in 2025. And realistically, money obviously isn't his top consideration, since he is bypassing a ton of money by choosing to come over right now Basically, he is delaying his ability to get a huge payday by several years by coming over now. And so obviously money matters. He's going to have to get paid, but it's not his top consideration. And so for me, this is not much of a surprise and doesn't seem, in my mind, to impact the Dodgers' chances of signing him one way or the other.
Yeah, if anything, or I don't think it would strengthen the Dodgers' chances. The Dodgers' chances are the Dodgers' chances. Like you said, money I don't think is really going to be an object, and the fact that he could get more money from the Dodgers if he waits till the next signing period makes a lot of sense. But I think for teams, it does maybe handicap you in a way that maybe doesn't handicap the Dodgers. The Dodgers are going to go to 6-man rotation. They're going to try to sign a top tier starter or trade for a top tier starter regardless. And then they would add Roki Sasaki to that mix, where some teams maybe won't have that luxury. Like not every team can afford to have a 6-man rotation. And they also can't afford to wait for a chance at Roki Sasaki in January when some of these bigger name pitchers might get signed or traded for before then. So in that sense, I think it does help the Dodgers out because they are in a rare position. Well, I guess they're always in that rare position, but rare position of, money doesn't matter. They have room for, pitchers, and it's not going to affect their winter plans because they're not counting on anything, but they also don't need it. And, and one team, or there are probably multiple teams that Roki Sasaki could be their only big signing of the offseason if it were to happen. And for the Dodgers, I don't think that's the case. And I don't think, they're not really he's a luxury at this point. He's the icing on the cake. He's the whatever, cliche you want to use, because they're still going to operate the same way with or without Roki Sasaki as they were before. It's not going to change anything on their end in terms of what they're going to do.
Exactly. Like we said, when it was first announced he was going to be posted, he doesn't affect their plans at all, money-wise, roster-wise. He doesn't even need to be added to the 40-man roster when he signs immediately. So they don't even need to make room for him yet. So they can go about their plans, whatever they're going to do. And, I have to think they have a decent idea if they have a good shot at him. Jim Bowden said that he thinks the Dodgers are unlikely to sign Sasaki, which in a way makes me feel better about their chances. Jim Bowden, who famously has been fired twice as a GM for being really bad at being a GM, although the second time it was also because he embezzled money and stole money from amateur free agents. So, there's a lot of reasons to take what Jim Bowden says with a grain of salt and wonder why he has a job. But, I still expect Nolan Arenado to be a Dodger by Christmas of, 2022?
Yeah.
So go Jim.
Yeah. All in all, it's interesting because, the other part of it is, as far as we know, I don't really think the Dodgers have any strong commitments or top tier commitments for the next signing period anyways. And some teams do and would have to, kind of go back on those deals in order to open up more money. Again, I just can't see Roki being about the money at this point. Yeah, is $2 million or $6-7 million better than $2 million? Yeah, of course. And if he's already knows where he wants to sign, then it makes a lot of sense in this sense. But if it's going to open him up to other teams because it is about money, like I said, I just can't see it. And realistically, other than all these different claims or thoughts or, quote unquote reports that have been made of he won't make as much money in advertisements, or he wants to beat Ohtani rather than join Ohtani, or, he doesn't want to be on a team with already a couple other Japanese superstars, like whatever it is. At the end of the day, if you're talking about pure baseball and wanting to win and everything else, there's no other team or organization that you would want to join.
Yeah, and we obviously wear Dodger color glasses and have no insights into his personal feelings. But yeah, unless he specifically doesn't want to be on a team with two other Japanese stars, it's hard to picture him picking anybody other than the Dodgers.
Yeah, so we will have to wait a little bit now, but the Dodgers, like I said, it's not going to change what they do this offseason. They're still going to be looking to improve the team. and probably have a little bit of a wish list there. And one of those ways they can improve the team is another top tier starting pitcher. And apparently they've already talked to one that we've talked about before, but why not talk about him more? That's coming up, so make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle America's NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet placed on FanDuel. And where can you do all that? On the FanDuel Sportsbook app, where one, you can place that $5 bet. Two, if you get a hunch in the middle of the game and you want a live bet, you can check out the latest stats, check out the play-by-play, and much more on the same page where you place those bets. All you gotta do is visit FanDuel.com to join today. And there's some easy ways to win that first $5 bet, or at least somewhat easy ways. And you take some, as much as everyone loves the underdog in the NFL at this point this season, some of these underdogs are not going to get it done. The Tampa Bay Bucks play the Giants. The Giants are starting a new quarterback. Bucks are going to win. Mike Evans is coming back. The Titans and the Texans, Texans are 7.5-point favorites at home. They're probably going to win. You got the Chiefs and the Panthers, which is probably the biggest one, 10.5 points. Take the Chiefs. The Chiefs are going to win. They're coming off their first loss, so they're not going to want to lose again. And, I keep telling you about the Raiders. Betting against the Raiders is probably a good bet the rest of the way. So all those different ways of putting down those $5 to try to get that 150 in bonus bets right now with the FanDuel app. All you got to do is go to FanDuel.com to get started. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure to become an everydayer by listening and watching every day. And make sure to join us live. If you're someone that listens daily, we appreciate you. But we are live on YouTube sometimes. And, the chat does get popping sometimes if you want to have a little bit of conversation along with your Locked On Dodgers. So make sure to check that out. And if you're already on YouTube, after our episode, you can go to Locked On Sports Today or Locked On Sports Los Angeles. Those are two 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing you the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world. All right, Jeff. So, shortly before we were about to start this, Ken Rosenthal came out with some notes. And in those notes, it appears that the Dodgers have already met with Blake Snell, one guy we've talked about, last offseason, one guy we talked about around the trade deadline, one guy we've talked about a little bit now in this offseason. But for how the Dodgers have attacked and how it seems like they want to attack in terms of contracts, Blake Snell makes a lot of sense in that regard, in terms of he might not be available, looking to get a 6-7 year deal, or he would want to, but no one's going to give him that. And he's been an elite starting pitcher for the last few years.
Yeah, and really not even just the last few years. Like even when he has struggled overall for his career, he's been outstanding. And Blake Snell, there's a lot of reasons that he appeals to me as a Dodger fan. One is that he strikes dudes out, and that he has the highest strikeout per 9 rate of any active starting pitcher for a career. He is the best in baseball currently. Over a long-term period. Obviously, I take Paul Skeens over Blake Snell for long-term future, but so far what they've done in their careers, Snell has put it together. And a couple points that Rosenthal makes. One is that Snell had a qualifying offer last year from the Padres, which means he wasn't eligible for a qualifying offer this year, which makes him in that way more attractive than a Corbin Burns or a Max Fried, who both have qualifying offers attached. He's also, one of the concerns, I guess, that I've had about Blake Snell in the past is he walks way too many guys. But I saw an interesting analysis the other day that was pretty convincing to me. It's that Blake Snell doesn't have bad command. He refuses to give in. And so the walk rate is why it's as high as it is, because he won't in a 3-ball count go to the middle of the plate, which is why his home run rate is ridiculously good. He allowed 0.5 home runs per 9 innings last year. And his hit rate, he allowed 5.6 hits per 9 last year because he won't come into the strike zone. And so, even with all the walks, his whip last year was 1.048. That's like nearly Pete Kershaw territory. And so it doesn't really matter how a guy gets on base. And so if he's given up more hits but fewer walks, in fact, walks are less damaging, especially if it's willful walks, like not like he's walking guys on purpose, but if it's bases loaded, it really is that he is commanding the ball and just refusing to give in. Well, with bases loaded, he's not going to walk in a run, and so walks can be less damaging than hits in general. Like, the more I think about it, the only concerns about Blake Snell for me are his age and how many years he's going to demand, because he's going to be 32 in a couple weeks. And, if he's looking for a 5-year contract, I could see the Dodgers balking at that. But I mean, if he's willing to go for 3 years, I think the Dodgers would get on board with that for sure. And maybe even 4 years. And the other thing is, even at his age, almost 32 years old, he's only thrown less than 1,100 innings in his career. He famously hasn't gone deep in games in his career, including once in the World Series in a very famous game. And that, he doesn't have as much mileage on his arm as a lot of 32-year-old pitchers do. So there's a lot of things about Blake Snell that appeal to me as a Dodger fan.
Yeah, when you're looking at the top tier guys, Snell, Fried, Burns, Crochet, whoever else is out there and available, it's all for the next 3-4 years. Like, the Dodgers not their entire window, but championship or bust window is the next 3-4 years. After that, it'll still be a World Series contender. It'll still be a playoff team, but it might not be as much World Series or bust. As it's presently stated, with the guys they already have signed long term, just because they're all going to get a little bit older. Again, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. But if you can get a guy that fits exactly in that window, a la Blake Snell, in a 3-4 year deal, then that's perfect for the Dodgers, because Corbin Burns, we talked about him, but are you really going to give 7 years, $200 million? Not because of they can't afford it, just a matter of, principle and everything else. And no matter how much money the Dodgers have, and they, have unlimited money if they really wanted to, Andrew Friedman is not going to overspend if he doesn't need to, or if he doesn't feel it's warranted. And that's kind of what we've seen so far. Ohtani was, you could say, an overspend with $700 million for one player. But then the way they structured the contract changed a lot of things for that. So, and Blake Snell kind of fits that, in the sense of he's going to be around, probably good for the next 3-4 years. He doesn't need to be Cy Young caliber, but, a Cy Young caliber guy is helpful. And maybe they can convince him that our offense is good enough for you to maybe not have to nibble, and maybe focus more on going deep in games. And like, if you get that security of a $120, $150 million contract, 3-4 years, whatever it ends up being, he might not have to worry about his numbers so much, and he might want to focus more about getting deep in games. And, with the 6-man rotation, it does help if every guy maybe goes into the 6th rather than get through the 5th, and it just helps the Dodgers overall.
Yeah, and I was just going to mention the 6-man rotation. I think Snell is a guy who definitely benefits from that, because then instead of limiting his innings per start, you're limiting the starts so you can go a little bit deeper. And that would be the goal if and when they go to the 6-man rotation, would be to extend out those starts so you do have guys going a little bit deeper in games. And I think Snell definitely could. The nice thing is, once Ohtani qualifies again as a two-way player, they'll have the 6-man rotation, but they'll only be using 5 guys who count as starter, as pitchers on their roster. So they'll still have just as many relief pitchers. So it's not like another reason why most teams it's not as practical for them to go a 6-man rotation, because they'd have to use 6 pitchers, and the Dodgers can use 5 pitchers and a two-way player. So all of those things factor in for Snell. And again, like I said in the last segment, you and I, we're Dodger fans, we're World Series champions, we're coming off this high, But I don't think that makes it wrong when we look at every free agent and say, man, Dodgers make sense for that guy if he wants to win, because the Dodgers are set up better to win than any other team.
And every guy's going to want the money, but if you can have money and winning, we've seen it, like not just in baseball, but other sports, but, baseball too. Like guys have, do you think Chris Bryant's happy right now? Probably not. Did he get the most money he could have got? Yes. But does he probably hate where he's playing? Maybe, or at least not like it, or like it strongly, dislike it strongly. Nolan Arenado, got paid in Colorado and then got traded to St. Louis. And, he's won more playoff games with the Rockies than he has with the Cardinals. Like it at some point, I don't think, money's always going to be the driving factor. At some point, like players might want to hone in on, hey, I want to be happy and I want to win. And there's nothing about, the Dodgers, even in years they lost, but specifically this year when they won, I mean, watch anything from the Dodgers players that are free agents now, or free agents once the season ended, that were still out there repping and talking about the Dodgers, a week or two after the season was over.
And we still haven't gotten around to talking about Paul Sewald's comments from last week, but that dude's a free agent who has never played for the Dodgers, never connected. And he's talking about specifically, if I went to the Dodgers, I could close, I could, be a setup man for Evan Phillips or for, and he's like talking specifically, naming the Dodgers by name. Like everybody wants to come to the Dodgers, and that's how it should be.
Yeah. So, another guy that could want to come to the Dodgers, Willie Adames. If that was the case, there might be some other moves for the Dodgers to make. We'll get into that, so make sure to keep it locked on, Dodgers. We appreciate all you that listen. We appreciate you more if you're an everydayer. An everydayer is just someone that listens or watches every day. And now you can become one very easily by listening or watching every day. We got a few everydayers in the chat here live on YouTube. I know there's a lot of everydayers that are listening right now on their way to work or at the gym or before school or whatever it is. And we appreciate you as well. Everydayers are always appreciated. We've had a wild year, not just as Dodger fans, but for Locked On Dodgers. A lot of new fans, a lot of different things, a lot of different things that have happened. But we continue to want to grow and keep building towards every year as we move forward. So we appreciate all of you, and make sure to subscribe. If you're not subscribed already, you're like, I don't need to subscribe, I know I'm going to listen every day. Subscribe for us, show your appreciation for us. That's how we do it. So, all right, Jeff, Willie Adames, the Dodgers have been consistently linked to him, got linked to him again in the Ken Rosenthal article. Gavin Lux's name has been brought up a few times this year, not for an extension, but the Dodgers may move on from him if some of these other moves do come to fruition, or even if not, like even if just Mookie Betts goes back to second, I don't know if they would want to try Gavin Lux at short again, and that might leave him without a position. Either way, you want to go with this right now with Adames or Lux specifically?
Yeah, this is it's kind of an interesting quandary they're in, because both Gavin Lux and Mookie Betts, Gavin Lux couldn't make the throws in spring training last year, so they switched him. They put Mookie Betts at shortstop. Mookie held his own at short, but most of his issues that he did have were on the throws. Obviously, Mookie has plenty of arm to play shortstop, but just the figuring out the arm slot and the footwork and everything. I think it would be tempting for the Dodgers to think of both of those guys that, well, Lux is another year removed from surgery. Give him a full offseason working on those throws. Give Mookie a full offseason working on those throws. And I wouldn't be surprised if both of those guys could be good defensive shortstops next year. But then do the Dodgers want to bet on that? And then you start thinking about a guy like Willie Adames, but then you're like, well, the one thing that Adames took a major step backwards in last year was his defense. And, the fact is, I don't have any idea. And I don't know if the Dodgers have a better idea than I do, but I don't have any idea if Willie Adames is actually a bad defensive shortstop now, or if he just had a bad year, and I'm sure the Dodgers have nerds watching every single play, every play he made and didn't make, and figuring out, okay, were those flukes, because 1 year defensive metrics, it could just be fluky. But they're looking at that and said, okay, because he's still relatively young. He's almost just turned 29 in September. So he'll play most of next season at age 29. Still plenty young. Shouldn't be becoming that bad defensively already. But when you have two internal options in Mookie and Lux, who your big concern with them playing shortstop is the defense, it might give you pause looking at a guy like Adames, who defense is maybe the issue there, or the concern at least.
Yeah, and Adames, the reports have been that he's open to moving, playing third base if need be. Max Muncy's around, but not for that much longer. If you do give Adames a 5-6 year deal or whatever it is, maybe that is a thing. And Alex Freeland's climbing up the prospect rankings. He is a shortstop. We talked about this last year, and we saw it with Rojas and Nick Ahmed and different guys. Like, if the Dodgers have the rest of their lineup healthy and going, you can afford to have a glove for a shortstop, to focus on the defensive part. Last year, we got the benefit with Rojas for the most part that he was also pretty good offensively, or at least good enough, above league average. Nick Ahmed, I remember the one big home run, not much else offensively, but at that point, they just needed bodies. But, if you think about how the Dodgers were playing toward the end of the year and into the postseason, yeah, Tommy Edman was great. But if Tommy Edman was playing center and Kike was, didn't get glasses and still had his astigmatism and he couldn't see, and then they had, a compromised Rojas or Nick Ahmed was still around and playing shortstop, the Dodgers probably would have still been fine. But there's different ways to go about it. But the best part about all this for the Dodgers is that if they don't sign anyone, they're still in a good spot because they have Tommy Edman, who can play short, he can also play center. They have Miguel Rojas, who can play short and, can also play other positions in the field. They have Mookie Betts, who in a pinch can play short. Lux, I don't know, can't say for sure, but he could probably go there. He might not play it very well throwing the ball, but, you never know. So the Dodgers are in that prime position where they don't need to make a move, but they can make a move. And, again, with Willie Adames, do you want to go sign with, someone? It's hard because a lot of the teams that seem to be willing to spend are teams that were either playoff teams last year or teams that aspire to be playoff teams. I don't think there's a Texas Rangers lurking like there was a couple years ago with Seager, signing Seager and Semien, and then didn't make the playoffs that first year, won it all the second year, didn't make the playoffs the third year. Like, there's different ways to go about it, but it all just keeps coming down to, like, you want to play with the Dodgers, maybe you take a little bit less money, maybe you take, 4 years instead of 6 years, maybe they up the offer a little bit in AAV, but you're going to get to be on a winning team.
Yeah, and that's a couple of the things that Rosenthal mentioned. Something we know about is that Mookie and Adames are good buddies. They have been tight, even though they've never been teammates. They have been friends for a while, and I think Mookie even helped him baseball wise, and so there may be a part of Adames that wants to play with Mookie, but then Rosenthal throws out the Trey Turner and Xander Bogaerts and who was the other shortstop that offseason? Dansby Swanson, those contracts. And, I don't know if Adames is going to be looking for something like those contracts because the Dodgers aren't giving out a contract nearly as big as what those guys got. If they weren't giving it to Trey Turner, they're not giving it to Willie Adames. And so, like you said, it comes down to how much does he want to play for the Dodgers? Is he willing to come over on a smaller or a shorter deal at least and go for it that way? And again, do the Dodgers believe that he can play a good defensive shortstop? Because that is going to matter. They're not going to pay big money for a defensive liability at short because they already have defensive liability options and they already have glove first options. Adames, for him to make sense, for them to pay him a lot of money, he would have to be a glove and bat guy.
Yeah, and again, with the Dodgers and their defensive positioning and the rankings they have every year in that aspect, maybe that helps out. But it might be where you just strengthen every other spot, and then you just say, hey, Miguel Rojas and maybe Alex Freeland gets called up, and you go to short. And that's kind of how I thought last year. Like one of my bold predictions before the year started was that Trey Sweeney was going to have a big or whatever, something with Trey Sweeney and the Dodgers postseason, or playoff hero, or whatever it was. And it didn't happen, but he did play in the postseason.
He did hit a postseason homer, I think.
Yeah, he did have a bit. He had a game-winning hit in the postseason, I believe, and also played in it, just not for the Dodgers. So, if you have 1 through 8 legitimate offensive players, that limits, what you need at shortstop, and maybe that's the way the Dodgers go about it. But if Adames, hey, here's 4 and 160, you're going to make $40 million a year, but you're only going to get 4 years. Do you take that to have 4 chances at winning a World Series, and you still get 160 mil? Is that possible? I don't know, but I think that's the way. I really think the Dodgers approach this offseason is going to be for the next 3-4 years, and I think we might see that in what some of the offers are that get accepted and what some of the offers are that get reported after the fact.
Yeah, Sweeney didn't hit a homer in the postseason. In fact, he went 2 for 22 with a 283 OPS of the postseason. So
I think one of those hits was the game-winning hit, though. So.
He drove in 2 runs and scored 2 runs. So good for him.
Yeah, but So again, we're at this point. I feel like we're all waiting for the winter meetings to happen, just because we haven't seen really any traction other than Soto meeting with teams. The awards end tomorrow with Ohtani and Judge getting their MVPs, and then maybe it'll open up. But then people don't want to go around things. There's always different things. So we'll see. But we're going to continue to talk every time we hear something about the Dodgers. So
yep.
All right, Jeff. Got anything else you want to add?
That's it.
That's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, last listen, any listen of the day. We know that we go live. You might listen there. Or you might listen still on your morning routine. Whatever it is, if you're listening, we appreciate you. You want to become an everydayer, we appreciate you. All you have to do is listen or watch every day, which you can make easier by subscribing, get notified when our episodes are ready or when we're going live on YouTube. You can check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, which are 2 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network on YouTube, bringing the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world. You can go beyond the podcast, come on Locked On Dodgers Insider at joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. Get text directly from us with any news, thoughts, rumors, anything that happens this offseason. That's on social media. If you're not on there, we can be on there for you. You can find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff's on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincent91. You can DM us any questions or comments. You can also send those via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us when you get in your car or if you're at home. Text my device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.